It is my favorite. It is your favorite. It is everybody's favorite. It is the transfer portal. Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you all stopping by. We've made this a regular habit, hopefully with all of you, but let's not make it a habit past April 30th. Shouldn't be expecting any coaches to get fired because of spring practice, so we should be safe. April 30th is the final day of the transfer portal. Now, if you have kept up with all of the various intricacies of the rules concerning the transfer portal and why it could be extended beyond a coach getting fired, which we do not anticipate, of course, then you are a better man or lady than I. That was a bit... All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. We do appreciate you stopping by. We've got so many to get to because, of course, we're going Monday through Friday with these transfer portal updates. And we were not here on Saturday and Sunday. Well, we were here talking college football, spring updates with all of you, spring football. Check out Saturday night's live stream. It's very entertaining. A lot of great contributors stopped by, and we broke down the game across the nation on this past weekend, and we've got a big weekend coming up, of course, in spring football. All right, well, let's get to it. Let's get right to it. We've got the 247 Sports listings, and again, because we have not seen this since Friday, I have prepared myself in looking at the various lists. On to 247 Sports, and that's not where I wanted that to start. Let's go all the way back to Friday. And, I lost my place. Let's go back to Friday at the point where we left off. And that was with Texas offensive tackle Peyton Kirkland. There he is. That is not the first. There we go. We talked Jaden Rashada, of course, and we'll continue to. He's visiting Georgia. Probably already has at this point. All right, so here we go. Leave those comments and questions, of course. Super chat available, and you can actually call in if you'd like as well here at the Voice of College Football. I left that link on my Twitter feed, X feed, and then also media contributors hopefully stopping by. As I've explained, I don't really expect anybody to stop by because I've not given anyone a personal invitation, but just thrown that out there for anyone who wants to stop by and give us an update on their team. So let's go through 247 Sports. We're also going to go through two other feeds. You've got Texas offensive tackle Peyton Kirkland visiting Colorado, along with half of America, 6'6", 350. 18th rated interior offensive lineman when he came out in 2023, 55th rated player in the state of Florida. This guy is gaining much attention. He is Stephen F. Austin's Brandon Lane, an edge rusher. No, he's a D tackle. My bad. D tackle here. We talked about him several times. Washington, West Virginia, Kentucky show you to a certain extent how good of an FCS player he is, an All-American, and getting that kind of attention from big-time schools. We have UNLV offensive line transfer Alani Makihili. He started as a sophomore for Barry Odom, and he's got some official visits lined up. We have defensive lineman Renee Konga from Rutgers. He's been in the portal since late last week. 8 tackles, a lot made up. Let's back up just a second and understand there are generally, I would say, in this portal cycle, And almost across the board, 3 types of players. We have seen on the high end Caleb Williams, Jamison Williams, Bear Alexander, Quinshawn Judkins. But what has happened with those guys? Those guys had a destination. They knew, I'm going from Oklahoma to USC. I'm going from Ole Miss to Ohio State. I'm going from Ohio State to Alabama. And there wasn't much recruitment or pursuit there because they were locked in. They had a deal. They were going. So those are the headliners. Those are the real top flight guys. And then on that same level, the guys that there has been a recruiting battle over are guys like Cam Ward, who almost went to the NFL draft and was lured by Miami money. And who else came to mind and left my mind? A few other players where it was up for grabs where they would land. But what we have here is we have a step below. We have one step below of really good players, and there's about 10 or 15 of those guys out there right now. 10 or 15 guys who are close to all conference kind of players. They're really good players. They've started somewhere for a couple of years. They've been impact players. And then we have something that's close to a capable backup, a guy that's played, a guy that's been on the field or started part-time. And then we've got a lot of guys that just we were either high recruits where it didn't work out. They're not happy with their playing time and they're going to take off because they were expecting so much more out of college football, or just role players, just program players. So a lot has been made out of some guys. This is an interesting phenomena where way more attention is being given to players who have really not earned much attention. Here is the latest right here. A lot of attention given to defensive lineman Renee Konga of Rutgers. Would anybody be talking about Renee Konga otherwise? If we were doing a Rutgers 2024 preview and had he stayed at Rutgers, would we even mention his name? He had 8 tackles last year and 1 sack. He had 2 tackles for loss. Now, the next guy on the list, this guy's a player. Not a great player, though. Nowhere close to the guys I had mentioned, Quinshawn Judkins, Caleb Williams, Jamison Williams. Nowhere near that. Good player, though. Good player. Visiting USC next week after trips to Auburn and Texas A&M. That would be Keandre Lambert-Smith. 53 catches, 4 touchdowns. He's been a productive player at Penn State for a few years now. So now that we're in week 2 of this, we are continuing to see players entering the portal. We are now seeing the bulk of players who have entered the portal, and now they're making official visits. And now I'm counting up 3, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13 players that I have charted today who have made a decision. Colorado, of course, continues to be active with former Ohio State running back Dallin Hayden, stud, former Pitt edge rusher Dayon Hayes, we will get to him in a minute, and former Texas offensive tackle Peyton Kirkland visiting over this past weekend. And Kirkland is reported to Colorado. We have a really good player here in New Mexico standout transfer running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt going to Ole Miss. This guy ran for just under 1,200 yards and was 5th in the nation with 17 touchdown runs, 6.3 yards per carry, 7 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, so check that one off. He's on to Ole Miss. We have a guy that was much talked about at the end of last week, including right here, Elijah Badger of Arizona State. look at those numbers over the last 2 years. He was a top 150 player coming out of high school, so he has fulfilled his potential. 135 in the reception department the last 2 seasons, 11 touchdowns, and we know the quarterback play at Arizona State has not been the best. It's been a turnstile. So that's a pretty good pickup out there for someone right now. As reported by Chris Hummer, 247 Sports, Nevada wide receiver Darian Wiley has picked up offers from Georgia State, Marshall, and Western Kentucky. Wiley caught 24 passes, 400 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, I believe Vanderbilt. Looking at him. There it is. Yes, he has received offers from Houston and Vandy as well. And will visit Willie Fritz in Houston this Saturday. We've got a backup quarterback in Utah State player McKay Hillstead. It says he's a hot name in the portal, drawing interest from Big 12, SEC, and Big 10 programs. He will visit the in-state Utes. Hillstead this past season, 60% completion percentage, 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, 8 picks. So he would be a good backup quarterback somewhere. Or he could stay in the group of 5 and compete for a job. Miami of Florida, second-year linebacker Caleb Spencer barely stepped on the field. I know it says that he played in 11 games as a true freshman, but he made 1 tackle. He was the 45th rated linebacker in the country in 2023, a top 15 player in the state of Virginia. He's out there. Our buddy Andrew Heddersley, Texas A&M 247 Sports guy, reporting here. Utah offensive lineman Kalanuu Va'aiu. That's how you go with that, I believe. Transferring to Texas A&M. Offensive lineman who was stout with the Utes, going to College Station. Former Ohio State defense back Cedric Hawkins did not play for the Buckeyes. 1 season in Columbus, comes back home to play for UCF. We have an Arkansas offensive lineman, Paris Patterson, entering the portal. 6'6", 350. We have Luke Evans, Mississippi State cornerback, true freshman last year, did not play, headed to Miami of Ohio, hoping to play for the Red Hawks. Okay, here's a big pickup right here. That is one Romello Height. That is straight from his X account. Romello Height had 4 sacks for USC last season. He has chosen the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech. FCS wide receiver Raylan Sharp out of Missouri State will visit Iowa. Okay, look at that. Iowa going after a receiver. 1,000 yards last year, just shy of 3rd in the FCS in receiving yards per game. Iowa needs help. Raylan Sharp says, I'll give it a look. This is a Clemson to Minnesota move here from Clemson true freshman edge Adam Kasai. Kasai. Going from Clemson, and we'll find out a little bit later in this same 247 Sports feed that he's going to Minnesota. There's the Deion Hayes move from Pitt to Colorado. 10.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. And so Pitt is losing some of its best defensive players. Houston wide receiver Joshua Cobbs, he did next to nothing last year. 8 catches. And defensive lineman Hakeem Ajajolai, 21 tackles and a sack. They are leaving Houston. We talked a lot last week about USC offensive lineman Jason Zandamela, who I don't really consider to ever have been a USC offensive lineman because he never played for USC. He was in the 2024 class, was the number one rated interior offensive lineman. And he's homesick. So he's going to stay in the Sunshine State, apparently. South Florida, Central Florida, Florida State, Florida, Miami, all of those in play. Okay, this is a big pickup for Oklahoma. Second team All-America Conference selection at center. Branson Hickman, 33 starts, goes from SMU to Oklahoma. We talked about that last week with Parker Thune from KREF Sports, an OU insider. He had predicted that. Another reason why you watch our live streams. We have talked more Peyton Kirkland. I don't know that he deserves it. Okay, just find a place to play, buddy. All right, more on him. And then there is the pickup from Adam Kasai out of Clemson to Minnesota. He was the 29th rated edge rusher in his class. He committed to Minnesota. So this is much like the LSU player, Jackson Howard, from last week, who originally committed to Minnesota, signed with LSU, sat around Baton Rouge and didn't play for a year and decided to come back to Minnesota. Same thing here. He'll still be a true freshman yet this fall. So he must be a 2024 guy. Anyway, he's out of Minnesota. Or I'm sorry, Howard out of Minnesota. This is a Florida product right there. Nevada's leading receiver in 2023, Dalvin Campbell. We talked about him, 19.2 yards per catch, over 1,000 yards the last 2 years combined. And he's in the running all over the place and much coveted. Rayan Buell was a impact player at Ohio University for the Bobcats. They had a successful year last year, I believe 10-3, 4.5 sacks for him, 12 tackles for loss, 27 total tackles, and now he is a Buff. Here's a big one right here. Alabama lands Lou Groza award-winning kicker Graham Nicholson, 27 of 28 last year, and perfect outside of 40 yards. Florida State finally passed its NCAA violations and penalties, in which they can now, after 1 week of sitting on the sidelines, they can enter the transfer portal and contact players and sign players. Michigan State has landed Indiana edge rusher Anthony Jones. Anthony Jones last year had 12 tackles for the Hoosiers. He played in 14 games as a redshirt freshman, and again, 12 tackles for Indiana. And here is college football in 2024. Anthony Jones, 2022, Oregon, 2023, Indiana, 2024, Michigan State. Arkansas redshirt freshman offensive lineman transfer Paris Patterson. We mentioned him prior. These are the visits. Wisconsin, Michigan State. I guess that's MSU. Could be Mississippi State. SMU, Colorado, Tulane, Charlotte, and others. It's all over the map. Miami of Ohio, South Alabama, Western Kentucky, Toledo, and New Mexico. So he's going to have a busy time. Those are the teams he's heard from. Okay, here's a player. When we talked about that first group of players, and there only being maybe 10 or 15 of these guys, Louisville linebacker Jalen Alderman, 62 tackles for a team that went to the ACC championship game, 7 tackles for loss. So he can play, and he's in the portal. And this guy's at the top of the board. Damian Martinez, Oregon State, taking a number of visits this week, but as was pointed out when we had Brad Tejeda on last week from Canes Insight, that Damian Martinez visiting Miami twice. So that would be a good indicator for the Canes. LSU wide receiver Kai Preen did not step on the field for LSU as a true freshman last year. He is transferring to Tulane. Tulane is losing some standout wide receivers. They also picked up Mario Williams out of USC. I did not see that. Ex-Alabama wide receiver Shaz Preston as well. They do lose Chris Brazzell, however, and he's a good player. Colorado DB Adam Hopkins only had 4 tackles last year, probably pushed out the door. So he's in the portal. We've got another Louisville player. We talked about Jalen Alderman, also offensive lineman Luke Burgess. And so Louisville near the top of the board in losing players. Charlotte guard Ja'Kai Green, former Maryland signee, started 8 games at right guard for Charlotte. He's available. Zach Owens, second-year offensive lineman at Clemson. Mountain of a man, 6'6", 375, and a top 300, 200 recruit. Okay. Another top-of-the-board guy. This is in the Damian Martinez range. One of the top guys right here, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Damian Martinez. We've seen a few here. Dominic Williams, TCU. Here's another. Kent State defensive tackle C.J. West, drawing all sorts of attention. LSU, Rutgers, Florida State, Michigan, Indiana. It's quite the list. C.J. West, be looking out for him. Okay, Solomon DeShields is a guy that we talked about late last week, coming into the portal from Pitt, and another one of their starting defensive players leaving. 58 tackles last year. Texas A&M is his destination. He's made his decision. UCF edge rusher Xavier Carter re-enters the transfer portal following joining the Knights in the winter window. Okay. Here is maybe the day's classic transfer portal player. Let's see if we can track this. Carter was at LSU for 2 years. Okay. He was at LSU in 2021 and 22. UNLV in 23. Was slated to be at UCF in 24, but no, he's going somewhere else. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 schools since 2022 for Xavier Carter. And Xavier Carter, listen everyone to these mind-numbing stats from Xavier Carter. I've got him here. 14 tackles last year, 2 sacks. And he just keeps moving on. Now, I got to think that if he just signed at UCF, that he was going to get some playing time there. I could be wrong. He could have gotten the nudge. Arizona State cornerback Ed Woods, he's entering the portal, and I got to think that this is his decision. He's a 2-year starter. He had 33 tackles last year. He had 3 TFLs, a pick, 4 passes defensed. He has 10 career passes defensed and 66 tackles. So this is a guy that has been a 2-year starter at Arizona State. I got to think that this is his move. There's Jakari Brown. It looks like Jakuri, but it's Jakari visiting UCF. And he is a mountain of a man. He reminds me of Malik Murphy, but probably not quite as good now. Another Louisville player, defensive lineman Tawfik Thomas. 4 tackles. When I first saw this picture, I thought, oh, okay, is this guy a good player? It looks like he's being interviewed here at midfield. I think he's just was caught in the crowd and somebody took his picture. Had 4 tackles. We've got some hoops, and we've got a rather famous name here. Michigan State wide receiver Antonio Gates Jr., son of the all-time great Antonio Gates. He caught 5 passes last year, caught a touchdown against somebody, and he's in the portal. If you believe in bloodlines, go after him. Here's a decent starting player for a decent team. Miami defensive lineman Jared Harrison Hunt. 21 career starts for the Hurricanes, 11 last season. He had 26 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 sacks last year. He has 4 career sacks. He's available. We mentioned Alani Makahele out of UNLV. He visited UCLA, and he talked about it. Kentucky wide receiver Shamar Porter in the porter. He's Porter in the portal. Porter in the portal. Shamar did not catch a pass last year for Kentucky as a true freshman. 27th rated wide receiver when he came out in 2023. Number 4 rated player in his state. Number 214 in the entire class. Okay. These are just coming down that I've not seen. Former Miami running back Henry Parrish. And here's something else we'll see. Do we know of anyone else who has done this? I can think of the Oklahoma tight end. The Oklahoma tight end. Oh, why can't I think of his name? Austin Stogner. Oklahoma tight end. Went to South Carolina with Spencer Rattler for 1 year. Went back to Oklahoma. So this is another facet of this that we are going to see. Is players going back to their original school. So Henry Parrish played a lot at Ole Miss, played a lot at Miami. He may have led Miami in rushing last year. Goes back to Ole Miss. All right. This is new coming in. Arkansas starting defensive back LaRondo Snacks Johnson. Snacks, double X. I guess he eats a lot of snacks, but they wanted to be cool and not name him Snacks with a CKS. Snacks Johnson. Wonder which are his favorite. Is expected to enter the portal. 29 tackles, 5 pass breakups, 4 TFLs, a sack, and a pick for the Hogs in 2023, originally coming out of Baylor. Coming down in the last hour, courtesy Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports. Tennessee defensive lineman Jason Jenkins is expected to enter the portal. A New Jersey native in the 22 class, played in 6 games last season and had 4 tackles. So he probably played a lot of special teams. Louisville defensive tackle Jermaine Lowell, one of many, half the Louisville team in the portal. Started his career at Arizona State. 141 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks. We did talk about him last week. That's production from a D tackle, but also has shown that he has been in college football for a long time, and it was Arizona State. He produced at Louisville. Now the crystal ball, according to 247 Sports, goes Oklahoma. Here we've got Texas lands Arizona defensive line grad transfer Bill Norton. We'll talk about this a little bit later tonight on our Texas live show. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern time right here, 66325. Of course, Texas has few concerns on either side of the ball, but interior defensive line play would be one of the big ones. Probably number one on the list, Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat moving on to the NFL. I don't know that Bill Norton is that guy, but he will help solidify the interior for the Longhorns. And there you go. That is the latest. And we're going to check out a few other feeds related to the transfer portal to see if we can pick up any other nuggets. Jackson on point right during the break here between transfer portal feeds. If you love exclusive live streams, watch parties, predictions, betting advice, and insider looks, become a YouTube channel member or Patreon. Take your selection or join both. Certainly, that's an option. Dion, thank you so much for being here. Drufus and others. Cherie says, Jim, I'll say Harbaugh can't even keep a straight face when he is cheating. All he does is flash that creepy little smile that he does all the time. So there was really no reason for me to read that, except for Charisse makes amusing comments all the time. And I usually, because of the conversation going on that has nothing to do with her comments, usually bypass them. But Charisse, hey, I had to acknowledge one of these comments. So thank you for that. Okay. I knew this was going to come up from somebody, and I'm sure it has elsewhere, about Seth McLaughlin and his bad snaps in the Rose Bowl. He was starting at Alabama, and I believe he's going to be the starting center at Ohio State. And yes, DeReal, Florida State is still in the ACC. That's still a great pickup for the Buckeyes. Starting offensive lineman at Alabama. I don't believe that he had those kind of issues the entire season. He did in the Rose Bowl for whatever reason. It is called coaching. You can coach. You can also move centers to guard if need be, especially if they're that good. So you can move a center to guard if need be. And then you also, again, can coach these things. All right, let's check out On 3. And we will take the On 3 feed from where we are right now. So I'm not going to try to go back and guess. We will just take it from the top here. And we will see much of the same news, but let's see if we pick up something new. There we have the Henry Parrish move. We've got Gates at Michigan State. Okay, this is Cormani McClain looking at Memphis, UCF, and South Florida. So this is what happens when you don't apply yourself. Cormani McClain, the number one rated cornerback in the country as a 5-star, looks like he is down to Memphis, UCF, and South Florida. NFL draft coming up on Thursday. We will announce what we are going to do with that. On 3's Pete Nakos. Logged a prediction for Miami to land Oregon State transfer running back Damian Martinez. And I'm not going to say we've predicted that because I'm not in that game, but based on all indicators and what we've talked about with Cam Underwood and Brad Tejeda, that was a good guess to make a week ago. All right. I don't know that we're going to find anything. We've got basketball here. We want none of that. Okay. There's the confirmation that Peyton Kirkland is committed to Colorado. Okay. And more news that we've already reviewed. The Arch Manning hype cracks me up because these recruiting services, they know how to run a business, but they also do a solid job, regardless, I will argue with anyone, do a solid job evaluating these players. They're 16 and 17 years old. So in the case of Arch Manning, yes, they would love and did love at the time for Arch Manning to be a top quarterback. People are going to be more interested. Fringe college football and recruiting people are going to then be interested in this young man because of his last name. There's no doubt about that. Then some of his highlights from high school got out. And I noted one in particular where the competition looked like something out of a rec league. Okay, that calls into question how good he is, but it doesn't mean that he can't be as good as his ancestry. So obviously he is. And now we went from this guy having never thrown a pass or played in a game at this level, but being deemed as overrated, overhyped. He's not that good, to the second coming. Obviously, if he achieves 1/10 of what his uncles have achieved, then he will have had a successful career. That whole lineage, just when I think about it, just confounds me. The whole Manning lineage of father is an all-time college football legend, first round NFL draft pick, plays in the NFL forever. Two sons, they both win Super Bowls. They're all-time greats. They're going to be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, Peyton Manning's all-time great. Eli has his place. We could argue his qualifications for the Hall of Fame, but he did pull off two of the most remarkable Super Bowl wins ever. And then down from there, we've got Arch Manning. It's just unprecedented. It is unprecedented. It's crazy. And we do have the Ohio State show coming up Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So please join us on the Buckeyes channel. Later today at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to review all the recent NCAA rulings on NIL and the transfer portal. For as exciting as that is, that really gets me fired up for college football, but it is important. We're going to do that with Tony Siracusa. Last word on college football at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 7, it's Texas Live. At 11, it's USC Live. And then the other place I wanted to check out, because this was suggested by our buddy D-Rock Irish a few days ago, is this guy. I don't know what his background is, Mike Farrell, but he's a college football guy of some sort. And anything of note here, we've got group of 5 stuff that we don't largely delve into too heavily. Oklahoma DB Justin Harrington entered the portal as a grad transfer about an hour ago. Played in 19 games with the Sooners. I'm aware of him. Role player. Colorado defensive end J.J. Hawkins transferred in from Ole Miss, re-entered the portal. We have in the last hour, Louisville transfer offensive lineman. Where have you heard this before? Louisville transfer offensive lineman. Sam Seacrest picked up an offer from Central Michigan. Yikes. Texas State transfer offensive lineman Danny Valenzuela picked up an offer from McNeese State. Yes, we'll be tracking that one heavily. There's Parrish to Ole Miss. Western Kentucky running back Teron Keith transferred in from Bowling Green, re-entered the portal. So he never played for Western Kentucky. Baylor wide receiver Jordan Neighbors entered the portal. 18 catches at Baylor, 2 touchdowns, 96 yards. Here's another Utah State player entering the portal. We've got another Texas player entering the portal. This is impossible for me to make this out. That's Kai Woods. Okay. We talked about Porter. We've talked about Devon Banks, Washington DB, played 15 games during his time with the Huskies, probably all special teams. Pitt tight end Cole Mitchell. So these are coming down in the last hour too. So 247 Sports not delivering exhaustive information because we have a lot of other pickups. I'm just curious if this guy here, this Cole Mitchell, I'm going to make a big guess that he didn't play, but you never know. We'll look up his numbers. I'm curious. I don't remember seeing him. 7 catches, 72 yards. That was in 2021. Wait a minute on this guy. No, I think we've got nothing from Cole Mitchell. I think he redshirted. I think he transferred in from an FCS school to Pitt, didn't play. And then we've got a bunch of group of 5 deals that we don't have a whole lot of interest in, although Pitt's got 2 more guys. Let's see. With Israel Polk. Well, he was a true freshman last year, so most likely, even on a bad Pitt team, he did not catch a pass. Oh, I stand corrected. Israel Polk caught 1 pass for 14 yards. And the tight end that we just mentioned, he did not play. Look, Pitt's not only losing players, and again, a lot of these guys inconsequential, but the 3 defensive players that they've lost, one to Texas A&M, one to Colorado, one I believe still out there, are significant guys. They're players. They're second, third team, all conference kind of players. Now, the other guys, no. But 3 significant pieces on defense lost from Pitt. But here's a guy that transferred in from Pitt, okay, to Charlotte. Now he's leaving again. That whole deal just, I am not going to be able to shut my mouth about this double transfer business. Not going to be able to shut my mouth up about the double transfer, the guy that just drains resources from the football program and the university for an off season, never plays for them, steals snaps during spring practice. Got an issue with that one. Got a big issue with that one. Number 1, it needs to be legislated against. Number 2, whether that be from the school or the player, unless there's some kind of I don't know, could get messy, could be difficult to regulate and follow through on if there was some kind of mutual agreement between a true mutual agreement between player and school that there's going to be a double transfer. I don't like it. Don't like it. So, and then just in terms of bookkeeping, I want these publications, these sites to stop calling these players that double transfer during an off season and list them with the team that they transferred to that they never played for. Just call them a free agent wide receiver, free agent edge rusher. That's what they are. They're free agents. They never played for that team. When their stat line is listed in the future, it will show that they never played for that team. Their team will never be listed, never be there. Eric Gilbert. What's going on with Eric Gilbert, the former 5-star tight end? Signed at LSU, was an All-America freshman, caught 35 balls as a freshman, got his career off to a nice start as a 5-star tight end, but then he run amok at Florida, Georgia. Now he's at Nebraska. He's done some stupid things there. I don't know what the latest is on Eric Gilbert, but shoot, he's been at 4 schools and he never played for Florida. I don't know that he ever played for Georgia. I don't know that he stepped on the field considering they had one Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, but Eric Gilbert, yes, he's listed as having been on the Nebraska football team last year, but didn't catch a pass. He dropped a pass in the spring game. I remember that. What a waste of talent. And I feel bad for the guy, the young man, because he's probably not had the best direction, guidance. Eric Gilbert, 5-star tight end, 2020, LSU, 35 catches. Gets his career off to a nice start. Then he goes to Florida in the offseason, never plays, transfers to Georgia. 2 seasons at Georgia, 2 catches. Did catch a touchdown against somebody. I'm just curious as to, was it against a decent team? No, Vanderbilt. Caught a touchdown against Vandy in like a 59-0 win. And then he was at Nebraska last year. And again, something else came out. He did something stupid. And you just shake your head. And it's a sad, sad story that we've seen repeated in college athletics, college football in particular, over and over and over and over. And I could make more of a social commentary on it, but it's more or less sad concerning the individual. So hopefully he gets his life in order and maybe he will have a football career, but most importantly, a life. Buddy of mine and I were talking yesterday about 2 of the great NFL draft videos, documentaries that are out there. The Brady Six. I saw a comment from John D'Adamo about Tom Brady, the Brady Six, I recommend. And then also the documentary about the 1983 NFL draft that centers around Dan Marino and John Elway. Boy, that was 41 years ago. 41 years ago. So I do love the NFL draft. I no longer really follow the NFL. I watch the games. I watch a game or a series of red zone plays over the course of my Sunday afternoon. I don't follow the league anymore, but I did for a long, long time, as much as anything in life. My son called me yesterday. So I had a recording with somebody scheduled yesterday. And I just gotten home from church. I had a recording schedule. I was waiting for the individual. They stood me up. And then my son called me. And we had this exchange. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I was supposed to be recording with somebody. They stood me up." And so YouTube just threw me the 1984 Cowboys Redskins game in Dallas. No, they threw me the game in Washington that the Cowboys lost by 3 touchdowns with Gary Hogaboom at quarterback. And so I remember those games from the 80s like the back of my hand. So I zipped through it a little bit. I looked at some plays. I didn't sit there for 3 hours and watch a 1984 NFL game, but I zipped through it. I looked at it. That's like the pinnacle of NFL football for me. And then I remembered the game in Dallas later in the season that unfortunately decided the division championship, and I had to check that one out. So I was watching that game when my son called. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching the Cowboys and the Redskins in 1984." He said, "I blame you." He said, "I blame you. I wasted an hour yesterday watching Manny Ramirez postseason at bats." Sorry, you got the gene from me. All right, folks. I believe that just about does it for our daily transfer portal update here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we have just begun to fight today at the Voice of College Football, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Back here with Tony Siracusa. Last word on college football, NIL, transfer portal, NCAA rulings. 7 p.m. Eastern Time is the Texas live show. 10 p.m. Eastern Time, USC live show as well. So we will see you in 1 hour and 3 minutes right here at the Voice of College Football.